Okay, Matt, before we go for the week, you wanted to talk about this video game. You're just such a gamer over here
Uh-huh.
these days. So tell me
Yeah,
about
I'm
Cyberpunk.
trying to expand my my tastes. Yeah, so I got Cyberpunk
S-
2077.
So before you tell us how you feel about it, pretend I don't know what Cyberpunk is. What is Cyberpunk 2077?
So I mean, on the meta level, it's this game that this studio has been working on for like 9 years, and so it's got this huge amount of like hype and expectation built up behind it. And apparently, it's been having all sorts of problems, which is, I guess, why it's taken so long. But there was all this promise that it was going to be this unprecedented open world, just with a never before seen degree of size and depth to the open world experience. Like you've got this whole city that you can move around in and interact with everyone in the city,
Hmm.
and it ends. And what it is actually is, it's a first person open world, very much like Grand Theft Auto, to be honest, is how it works in execution, where you're driving around a city and then there's a bunch of missions you can do for different people, and it uses a lot of the same systems that have become very standard in the Grand Theft Auto type games. Um, but it's in a cyberpunk future where you get augments. It's actually very much like Deus Ex in that way.
Hmm.
I don't know. I mean, Deus Ex is a great classic game. Some of those things that was just like way ahead of its time, and I played it back in the day, and like this game really uses a lot of those ideas. I mean, a lot of games since then have also used those ideas.
Sure, sure.
But but in terms of so yeah, that's what the game is. So my feelings about the game is that I think like the first day that I played it for a few hours the first day, and I think I had a good impression after that. I was like, okay, I'm getting into the story. The combat seems kind of fun. Um, at the time, I was like, the combat seems fun, but I haven't earned any of the like abilities yet, and so it's basically just shooting people. And then like on the second day, I encountered my first catastrophic glitch that made me have to reload from a save, because a guy who I needed to get a key card from had warped through a wall, and I was like, yeah, this is pretty bad. This is pretty like unforgivable for a game of this caliber, that like I couldn't have progressed with the story if I hadn't gotten that key card. Like it
Hmm.
was very critical. Um and and then other than that, there's just a lot of glitchiness and kind of um issues with like the character animations. There's a kind of uncanny valleyness to the character animations, which, you know, one might say, "Oh, come on, Matt! All these games have uncanny valleyness to them." And I would say, like, actually, we played Soma the other day, a few months ago. That game was made in 2015, and I didn't feel this kind of jarring, weird, like alienness from the character animations there. Been playing God of War 2018 a lot, and that game is like perfect as far as I'm concerned. This game, like it's off putting in that way. And then the combat, like the more I played it, the worse the combat got actually. So on the whole, I've just been like increasingly disappointed, and I'm at the point where I've only really played it for maybe, I don't know, 7 hours or something, and I'm just not likely to play it anymore. Maybe that's a lot. I don't
Hmm.
know. But like I got some level of enjoyment, but it's kind of like built up. I've kind of like accrued complaints and annoyances while simultaneously like losing a sense of investment in the story, to the point where I'm just kind of like, I think I'm okay. I don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe I'll push myself to play it a bit more because I did buy it. Maybe I'll change my mind. I know Michael played it, and I think he liked it a lot more than I did. But and maybe we can have him on to talk about his opinion. But yeah, I'm not enjoying it very much, to be honest.
Yeah, that's really disappointing. I mean, I have not played the game yet because I'm in the middle of moving and just do not have time for video games right now. But it was definitely on my want to buy list. And I've been listening to the complaints and the huge issues it's having. And I think it's interesting that these are almost two separate issues. Like issue number one is that the game is busted and not clearly not ready for launch. I mean,
Hmm.
I think right before we got on to record, it was announced that Sony has pulled it from the PlayStation store. So I could not, if I wanted to play it, on a PlayStation I couldn't right now because it's been
Right.
pulled. And they're offering refunds to anyone who bought it through the PlayStation Store, which
Hmm.
is just insane. It's absolutely insane. I've been shown and told that on the last generation of consoles, on the PS4 and Xbox One, it is basically literally unplayable. That just like the textures take 20 seconds to pop in when you
Hmm.
move to a new area. Like it's just like fundamentally broken.
Hmm.
And that's a bummer, but that's like a bummer where you can be like, okay, well maybe they can patch that out, in a couple
Hmm.
months, like 3-4 months. They give some time, they patch out those issues and the game becomes playable. But yeah, I mean, it seems like from what you said and from what I've seen elsewhere, that there's another problem, is that the game is just not very good
Yeah.
outside of the technical issues it's having. That it's just kind of ho hum, and like I have this thing where I am so sick of the open world model of gameplay, like it's specifically the Ubisoft model, which I don't know if this is like shoring very close to that. I mean, even the Grand Theft Auto model, I'm just kind of like, it just ends up being a lot of just time spent driving between missions
Hmm.
where like you're just like you're just sitting there wait like drive like
Yeah.
and there are moments where that can be fun for sure, but I don't know, it just seems like a lot of empty open wasted space
Yeah.
so you could put the words open world on your video game.
It is. I mean, I agree. Like here's the thing. I've been playing a ton of God of War. Um, more than I played any game in many many years actually,
Yeah,
and I
you
just think
love you love this fucking
I
game. It's
fucking love this game. This game is so good. And here's the thing about it. Like, I don't know if people call it open world or not, but the thing is, like, it does have this thing where, there are different missions that you can do. They're like optional missions that you can do to earn money and experience and power ups and stuff like that. You can move around the world. You can even go between the worlds. It's very fun, very cool idea. And I played this game for a ridiculous number of hours, and I never actually get tired of any aspect of it. Like the combat is always challenging and fresh. Even if you're like really good at the combat, there's always like another level of challenge you can push yourself to like be just a
mhm.
little bit better. Moving around, like if you're on the boat moving around, the characters will tell each other stories and have character interactions, and you're into their characters, and so you care about that because you've got minor spoilers, I guess. Like you've got your son with you, and then you've got a head hanging off your belt who tells you stories. Um,
Mhm.
and both and so like there's always three characters, right? No matter what. Um, and so like all of that makes it so that you're never like, oh, like at no point in the game, even after you've beaten the game and you're just going around doing the side missions, you're still having fun basically. And
Sure.
this game, and I agree with you when just like the same thing for all the Grand Theft Auto games is like you're alone driving a car through a city. It's like, okay, that's fun for 20 minutes.
Mhm.
Okay, but you're gonna make me do like hours of this.
Yeah.
Like what? That's not fun. There's no fun here. What's the fun part? Like it's the sort of thing where I wasn't even playing that long, and I already found myself like shooting people randomly just to see what would happen, right?
Yeah.
Because you're just like I don't know what I can and can't do, and I don't know what the limits are, so I'm just going to kind of go buck wild here. Um, Whereas in God of War, it's like, well, that's not an option because it's not putting you in this weird place where it's like,
Yeah.
oh, it's an open world game, but also only if you stay on this path. It'll break
Yeah.
otherwise.
Yeah, and I mean, like the whole Grand Theft Auto, like I'm just gonna run up my star amount and do this whole big police chase thing.
Hmm.
Whenever that would happen, whenever I would do that, it was usually the result of boredom. Like
Yeah.
like I'm just like I'm driving to another mission and I'm just like, fuck this. There's
Yeah.
a cop car. I'm gonna run into it and then I'm gonna make my own fun. And yes, you could argue that these open world games do have the ingredients necessary to kind of build your own fun, but I mean, that still has an expiration date to it. Like that gets boring after a while.
Hmm.
Like there's only so much you can like outrun the cops before you're like, okay, I'm done with this now. And
Yeah.
no game in this type of design has really held my attention or really made like made me sit back and say, yes, I understand now. I understand the reason you had to make this open world. The only games that have come close to that the best like open world type design games that I played recently have been the Legend of Zelda game Breath of the Wild and another game called Outer Wilds that I've been telling you about for months because
Yeah.
it's like the best gaming experience I've had in a long, long time. And I mean, those are like the thing about those games is like I mean, the Breath of the Wild open worldness, it is a massive, massive world, but it also is like absolutely peppered with constant things to do. Like the frustrating slash not really frustrating part about that game is like you're heading to waypoint X and then you have 75 things that you stumble upon on your way there
Hmm.
that like distract you. But that's like a good thing because
Yeah.
that's discovery. Like you feel like you're discovering new things and you're like, okay, I'm going to go to this giant bird temple thing. Oh, but look, there's something down there, and look, there's something over there, and that feels good and natural. And then Outer Wilds is open world, quote unquote, but the world is it's big, but it's also small. Like and the game, the whole design philosophy of the game is to explore. Like the way the story is doled out to you is via exploration.
Hmm.
Where these Ubisoft open world games, it's just about putting collectibles. Like I'm so sick of the Assassin's Creed games. Like I'm so sick of them. Just
Hmm.
like ride from city A to city B. There's like 10,000 feathers on the map that you can collect if you want, but really you're just riding from mission to mission and then done. Game
Hmm.
done.
Yeah. Yeah. I think a big part of it is that I'm not invested in like my character.
Sure.
Um, and I think that's, yeah, maybe another thing about Breath of the Wild and Outer Wilds is like you from what you've told me, I haven't played either of those really. Is like you get more invested in it, and so that also helps propel you between
Yeah.
between kind of story set pieces. Whereas, I mean, this game is clearly trying, but I just don't really care or like my character.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah,
That's such a
that's
bummer. It's such a bummer. So many developers have put in so much time on that game, and I mean, you could argue that it probably shouldn't have been released in the state it was, but they felt pressure to do so because of all the continuous delays. And I feel bad for all the developers who are now are going to have to go through like crunch over the holidays to try to get the game into a shape that it'll get back on the PlayStation Store. It's just sad all around, you know.
yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I don't even know if they'll be able to fix it. Like, and I say it, I genuinely just don't know. Like, it seems like they've been struggling for so long to get it to work. It's like, oh, what is one more month going to do them? I don't.
Sure,
I
sure.
think. I mean, if I had to guess, I'm completely full of shit here. I know nothing about making video games, but I am a programmer, so I know how like loading things works, and like the thing about PS4 games in general is that they always have to load areas and then you move to a new area and they have to load the new area, right? That's
Sure.
it's like a fundamental thing of games in general, basically. And they find clever ways to kind of hide the seams between areas. And the thing about this game is just a massive, massive area, a massive world. And I think they've tried to do some like tricks to get around the limitations of the PS4's ability to hold a giant world model, and I think they fucked it up, and I don't think it can be fixed. Like I think they fundamentally misunderstood the capabilities of what they could get away with the PS4.
How do you I mean, how far along in the design process do you realize that and then decide to carry on anyway, right? Like they had to like I refuse to believe they shipped this game on that system without knowing that these problems were going to be there.
I think they did know. I just think they kind of hoped that people would be okay
Would
with
not
it.
notice?
Maybe, yeah. I mean, it's possible that they just like mostly tested it on PCs. I don't know, man. Like, I don't know anything about this studio, so
Yeah, and I don't really either. I mean, I've actually never played the Witcher games, which are like, and I don't know how many bugs the Witcher games had. Like, if this is a notorious problem for them,
mhm.
I just don't know. But yeah, it's a bummer.
Yeah, I mean, I've got a pretty good PC, and I still have that effect sometimes where like if you come upon like a car quickly, it looks like a Tesla Cybertruck for a second, and then like the
Yeah,
textures pop into existence.
yeah.
So they're doing something weird and unusual, and I think like kind of, yeah, novel and unique, and it's just it's not working if your hardware isn't up to it. So
That's a bummer. That's
yeah.
a bummer. All right. Well, that is Cyberpunk 2077, available in stores everywhere except for PlayStation
Except the
owners.
PlayStation Store, and maybe just don't bother.